Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, April 3rd, 2023. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Steve Helwagen. Man, a lot of good stuff to get into today, Steve. We're going to talk Ohio State recruiting, two major developments on the recruiting front for the Buckeyes, and then the scrimmage on Saturday was open to us. Almost the entire practice was open to us. The last hour and a half of the 2-hour practice was open to us, and they had at least 3 or 4 periods where they did live scrimmaging. Everybody except the quarterbacks were live. We're going to get into that. Let's start with James Peoples to Ohio State, Steve. The number 5 running back in the country picked the Buckeyes, and 5'10", 192 kid out of San Antonio, Texas. I love this kid. Number 69 player in the country according to the in-house 24/7 Sports rankings. He's number 94 overall in the country according to the 24/7 Sports composite. Great get for Tony Alford and the Buckeyes getting James Peoples in this class as the running back.
Yeah, just again, phenomenal verbal for Ohio State yesterday. Bill Kurlick had been in touch with me earlier in the day and said it looked like it was a possibility, and to kind of keep all eyes and ears open for that. And, again, they had a great recruiting weekend. They had guys in from all over the country to come to that practice and spend the day on campus, get the tour, the talk, spend time with Mickey Marotti. This is what we do in the weight room and everything, just the full presentation. And, I think that there'd been some thought that when Jordan Marshall from Cincinnati had committed to Michigan, that I think there was some panic. I think, first of all, hey, we're losing a great running back from Ohio to Michigan. And secondly, who's going to play running back at Ohio State? But I think the people kind of privately in the know, there was an undercurrent saying, don't worry about that, because they are in really good shape on Peoples, and they are also in really good shape on another running back as well to add to this class. So for me, Peoples, just kind of going over some of what our observations have been of him, just speed, just a speedy guy, probably in that Curtis Samuel type mold. I don't know that he is the same type of explosive player Travion Henderson can be when he's healthy, but maybe in that realm as well. He's not a big back like Ezekiel Elliott or that type of guy, a thumper, but he is his speed is just kind of his calling card, I guess. I would think he'll end up in the 205 range. Yep. I don't know that he'll get up to 210, possibly. And I think that'll help him in the Big Ten, certainly, because it's such a rugged league, no doubt, and such a tough place for running backs to play. We were watching them run the football in 2 scrimmages that they've had, and there were some plays that were made running the football, but a lot of times it ends with a 2-yard gain and very physical play. So it's tough to run the football in the Big Ten anymore, and I think that this is a guy that could definitely help him down the line. You figure you're going to lose Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams after this season, so he'll be a guy that comes in next year and can help him. And I think Sam Williams-Dixon is that other guy that we've talked a little bit about. He comes in from Millersburg, West Holmes, Amish country. He's going to play his senior year at Pick North, and he's a guy I think that the Buckeyes are in on as well at that running back position. Would be great to lose 2, Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams, but replace them with 2 national top 100 players would be great. And I think that, Peoples, and I could be off on Williams-Dixon. He may not be exactly in the top 100, but Peoples definitely is. And, I think he's going to do an outstanding job at Ohio State. I don't have any doubt about that.
Well, the good thing about Sam Williams-Dixon is I know that Mark Porter loves him, and that's all I need to know. Yeah, I mean,
the good housekeeping seal of approval.
Right. Like right now, he's like severely underrated because, as you mentioned, like he, was playing against very, very, very weak competition. I mean, he absolutely dominated. I mean, he just doesn't get tackled, as Mark Porter and Bill Kurlick were telling me when I filled in for Dan Rubin on one of the Thursday podcasts. And now I love that he's playing for Pick Central, going to play for Pick Central. So that'll be out the window of the competition. But yeah, and from my understanding, Peoples knows that they're going to have 2 backs in this class, and he's fine with it. So this all works out really well. Like Sam Williams-Dixon, 3-star right now, but severely underrated according to our Ohio experts like Mark Porter and Bill Curlick. Well, Bill Curlick's just an Ohio State football expert, period. But Mark Porter knows the talent in Ohio better than anybody that's walking the face of this earth. And if he says Sam Williams-Dixon is absolutely Ohio State caliber, I believe him. And then I love getting the speed guy in Peoples. So great stuff there. All right, moving right along. More good news, I think. We'll find out. Steve, is it coming in the air tonight? No, it's not coming in the air tonight, Phil Collins, but it might be coming in the air Saturday. And Air Noland got his offer, the number 7 quarterback in the nation, visited Ohio State. It was kind of, everybody figured he would get his offer. Ryan Day kind of has a policy that, he needs to see you throw in person before he offers you. Air Noland came to Ohio State, got his offer, number 7 quarterback in the nation. Again, I love that Peoples plays against top competition in San Antonio, Texas. I love that Air Noland plays against top competition in Fairburn, Georgia. Georgia's just dripping with talent, as we all know. So he's going to decide on Saturday, Steve. Do you think he's going to be a Buckeye?
Man, that's a tough one. They definitely have an opening in that 2024 class, and he would be just a tremendous get. I'm looking at his page here on 24/7 Sports. I see Arkansas, Clemson, Miami of Florida, Ohio State, Oregon. They are all listed as warm. Let me see if I'm missing anybody else of note.
There's 6 that are listed. Yep.
So there's another. There are 6, and my dogs are starting to freak out here.
All right.
Texas A&M is the other one. So that's a pretty good group of 6 schools. I'm going to ignore the dogs. They'll calm down here.
This is like a shout out to the late great Dwayne Long. I must say, I'm getting a little misty in here because when we used to have Dwayne on the show, you couldn't have Dwayne on the show without his dogs barking. So I think it's a nice backdrop. Go ahead, Steve. Nice memory.
Yeah, 6'3", 195 pounds, class of 2024, and ranked number 55 overall in the class for 2024. Number 7 at quarterback. So you think it'd land him. He just had a presence standing there the other day at practice and was really in tune, really watched every rep. I mean, he was standing right there. He could see himself perhaps as that guy down the line for the Buckeyes. Obviously, we know that Michigan picked up a huge quarterback commitment over the weekend with Jaden Davis. The Buckeyes had been involved with him. And he's out of North Carolina, number 28 prospect overall. So, again, 2 national top 100 quarterbacks, 1 going to Michigan, potentially the other to Ohio State. I guess we'll wait and see, what happens with it. But as of right now, you got to like Ohio State's chances right there in the mix for Air Noland.
I love it. Yeah, I should have asked Bill Curlick before we came on live, but I'll be surprised if Air Noland doesn't pick Ohio State. It's a perfect place for a quarterback to get developed, in my opinion. And then last time I checked, they recruit pretty well at the wide receiver positions. So you're probably going to have some good wideouts to throw to. It's my little joke.
Him watching Carnell Tate had to make him really excited to know that.
Nice segue, Steve. Now we're going to talk about the scrimmage. Boy, they were talking up these true freshman receivers, and I love the class when they signed them. And Brandon Ennis isn't even here yet. And then they're talking about, like, even during winter workouts, how guys like Carnell Tate and Noah Rogers and Bryson Rogers, but I think more so Carnell Tate and Noah Rogers just look like they are ready to go. And then we saw it ourselves at the scrimmage on Saturday, Steve. The defense won. We'll get to that in a moment. But, man, Carnell Tate was the star of the scrimmage. Every time I turned around, it seemed like he was – number 17 was making a big play. I didn't see him drop anything. Igbinosun had a good pass breakup to knock a ball out of his hands, but that was just a nice play by Igbinosun, who played really well. Carnell Tate was a dude on Saturday, Steve.
Yeah, I think the play of the scrimmage, I got a photo of it. I just happened to be standing right where it happened. It was Kyle McCord threw a back shoulder throw out of bounds to Carnell Tate right in front of where you were standing there on that sideline. And I just happened, my camera somehow got in focus, and he's like 10 feet from me, and I got this photo.
Nice.
And then I got one of him going down to the ground, completing the catch. And that was, to me, that showed that McCord could make that throw where only his guy can get it. And it was one of probably 5 spectacular plays that Carnell Tate made during the day. And Carnell Tate is next. He is the next man up, as they say, as of right now. And again, you have to stack one day on top of another, as Ryan Day talks about. But Carnell Tate right now has the look and feel of somebody who's going to be a really good player at Ohio State. They've got him listed at 6'2", 191. He played last year at IMG Academies from Chicago originally. And there have been no yellow lights where Carnell Tate's been concerned. Nothing that needs to concern you, it seems, at this point. He looks like he is being primed to be a really good player. And I would presume he would be on the field, maybe 20, 25 plays a game this fall, given the fact that Ohio State's so deep at wide receiver. But this is a guy you cannot deny this kid. He looks like he's going to be a really good one.
Here's the thing, though. I'll push back on that a little bit. He absolutely, if he needed to play this year, I have no doubt would play well. But here's the thing. Marvin Harrison Jr. to me 2 years ago looked like he could play right away if he needed to. Yeah. Right? And I bet he could have. And Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the best that's come through here, and that's saying a monumental amount. If not, he's going to be one of the best, which is still saying a monumental amount. And, Steve, as we all know, as a true freshman, Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't play until the Rose Bowl. Obviously played great in the Rose Bowl with 3 touchdowns, had his breakout performance, over 100 yards, I believe, too. But he wouldn't have even had that role if Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave didn't sit out. So if you're Carnell Tate this year and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka stay healthy, you also have Julian Fleming, Xavier Johnson, Jaden Ballard. I don't know if he's going to have a big role. As great as he looks, because Marvin Harrison Jr. looked great to me 2 years ago, didn't have a big role till the Rose Bowl.
Well, I think that they can subtly, however you say that, subtly.
I hope so.
Not suddenly, but subtly figure out a way to get him some game reps if need be, and not necessarily take away from those veterans who are also deserving. And again, it's consistency. It is the overtime. Can you do it? Do you do it every day? And he looks like he's got the look of a guy that's going to be a solid 2-year starter at Ohio State. I think one thought that I had about the passing game, this is 2 scrimmages we've been to, and I haven't seen a live ball turnover yet. What I saw was 1 sliding interception by Davison Igbenison on a 7-on-7 pass by Kyle McCord that was just off a little bit. And he slid in there, and then, of course, he stands up and starts to run it back. Well, in the background of my photo, you see the official running in like this. Like,
this is not the Scrimmage, buddy.
I mean, these guys haven't thrown a ball that someone's picked off and said, I'm taking it to the house. That hasn't happened yet. And I think, because it hasn't happened, people haven't talked about it. But because it hasn't happened, we need to talk about it. These guys are playing great, in my opinion, so far, when they're given time, which I think is something we need to also touch
Let's get into that. Yeah, so here's I'll say this about, so there's 2 things there. So, yes, I also think if the quarterbacks were live, first of all, that would help them make more plays, because instead of getting a fingertip on them, just to be clear for everybody out there, I think most know this, listening and watching, but at the scrimmage, everybody's live except the quarterback. So if I'm a defender and Steve's the quarterback and I get a fingertip on him, Steve's down. Whereas normally Steve could move in the pocket. Kyle McCord, Devin Brown could move in the pocket. Somebody brushes them. They just brush that off, and then they make the play. Also, so that would help the quarterbacks make more plays. It would also, if the defensive linemen and linebackers weren't getting sacks, we'll talk more about that, all the sacks we saw, I think that would lead to more of what you're talking about then, Steve. Then quarterbacks would be throwing more balls because more plays would be alive and not blown dead by a sack, and then they would be throwing more interceptions in theory. We won't know because we'll never know. But so there were a ton of sacks. What do you make of that? Was it because they could get their fingertips on the quarterback and he's down? Was it the defensive line just dominating the offensive line somewhere in between? Because every time, it was like every other play, the announcer was like, sack. So you could look at that 2 ways. How do you look at it?
Yeah, I think that the defensive line is playing really good football right now. And it wasn't even blitz pressure. It was the defensive line that was getting home. Mike Hall, Tyleek Williams, Kenyatta Jackson continues to do very well. JT Tuimoloau.
Yeah.
I'm just going through the whole list of guys that I had written down as sacks. Ty Hamilton, defensive tackle, collapsing the pocket. 92, Caden Curry coming off the edge.
Boy, Kenyatta Jackson looks like straight out of central casting for an edge rusher, doesn't he?
He
And
does.
I like Caden Curry a lot too. And those are the backups. Those are
He
the
does.
backup. Those are the second team DNs is Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson. And Kenyatta
Yeah.
Jackson Jr., all he needed to do was bulk up. And he has. He's 17 pounds heavier than last year and looks just as quick, maybe quicker.
It's good weight, and he's putting it to good use. He is, that's 7 or 8 sacks right there out of maybe 60 plays, 70 plays. That's not a good ratio, I think, for the offense. They didn't have Zim Mahalski, so he wasn't there. Tegra Toshbola was repping at right tackle, and I'm not putting all this at his feet. I think Josh Fryer got beat for a couple of these as well. I think that some of them were on the backups, but again, it's that push-pull. The defense makes a play, you can get excited, but it's a black mark for the offense that they weren't able to protect the quarterback. I think in the fall, you're not going to have these kind of issues. They're going to shore things up. And this was a good scrimmage to have on tape because they can go back. There's no reason not to show up tomorrow for practice and get right back into it and work on all those pass rushing, pass blocking drills that they do. They spend so much time on it with technique and taking the proper first step. I mean, it's you against a fellow offensive lineman, and all you're doing is taking 2 steps. I mean, every day it is so intricate, the amount of work that they put in on proper technique to pass protect. And I don't have any doubt that it's going to all work out. It's just right now they've got a lot of work to do. So, and you're bringing a lot of young guys along. I think there were some young guys that were in the 2 deep, as we said, because Zim Mahalski wasn't there. And so, and I don't know how serious the injury is. Coach Day said that they hope to get him back before the end of the spring. Jihad Carter, the safety, he left with some type of apparent knee injury. Mm-hmm. And I guess we'll wait and see how soon he can get back. But, they're midway through the spring. They've still got 6 or 7 practices before the spring game on April the 15th at Ohio Stadium. So a lot still to work on.
I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I mean, Igbinosun looks really good to me, the Ole Miss transfer. And this kid has a great attitude. We got to meet him on Thursday. I mean, if people if you watch that interview with Davison Igbinosun and don't fall in love with him and you're a Buckeye fan, I dare you to watch that interview and not fall in love with him. This kid has a great attitude. And he's a tall, lanky corner, 6'2", 187, but he's tough. They talk about how he looked like a good tackler. They were doing this really cool one-on-one open field tackling drill. He looked great in that. By the way, Josh Proctor did not look good in that. He whiffed a couple times on the start of the day, Carnell Tate. Even before they started scrimmaging, Carnell Tate was making people look bad. But I mean, we'll see what happens, Steve. I really like the corners. Denzel Burke's looking good to me. Jordan Hancock looks solid, but Igbinosun looks absolutely like he is going to be a stud here. Mentioned, and he knows he grew up an Ohio State fan, was talking about how he loves Jeff Okudah and Denzel Ward. Absolutely love it. All right. Oh, and by the way, you mentioned the second team offensive line and Zen Mahalski being out. So poor Miles Walker's out there running with the 2s at left tackle, trying to block the likes of, or was it right tackle? Yeah, he was right tackle because Fitzpatrick was at left tackle. Fitzpatrick was solid at times, but poor Miles Walker running with the 2s at right tackle, trying to go up against guys like Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry. Not a fair fight. All right, a couple more questions. These are from Twitter listeners that I wanted to get, or Twitter readers that I wanted to get to. There's been a lot of questions about Jaden Ballard. And he looks good and he's very talented. And he can take the top off the defense. The thing is, Steve, as I keep saying, like Brian Hartline has proven if you're not in that top 4, you're not going to play. So he needs to beat out either Julian Fleming or Xavier Johnson, really a Julian Fleming because he plays a different spot than X. Because Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka are going to play a lot. And he's got guys like Carnell Tate nipping at his heels. How much do you think, if everybody stays healthy, relatively speaking, do you think Jaden Ballard's going to have a relatively big role this year? Or do you think he's going to be kind of that man that's kind of on the outside looking in, only plays during really garbage time?
No, I think he'll have some primetime reps. I think it could be a case where it's kind of drips and drabs for him, where 1 week he might get 5 catches for 100 yards with a big hit, and then you don't hear about him for a couple weeks, and then he's back in there with 4 catches for 85 yards, and it could be that kind of a support complementary role where some games it rolls his way and some games it doesn't. He only gets 1 catch or whatever. That's just the lay of the land in this offense and in this league going against these teams, that some weeks it's going for him as not a guy who's going to play 45, 50 snaps, 60 snaps. It's going to be feast or famine for him. And I think that's probably what he's looking at. And that's how it has always been for that fourth guy, fifth guy, whatever, is that you're going to have a breakout game, but you may not be able to do it on a weekly basis because the number of reps just won't be there from 1 week to the next. So, I would think that if they get a big lead on some of these teams, that they'll certainly have some of these other guys play. You walk that balance. You want Harrison to get his and Igbukah to get, his, but when the score is 38-3 to start the third quarter or middle of the third quarter, you need to get those guys out of harm's way and let some other people play. So to me, I think they're all going to play a role and will all be counted upon at some point. I mean, you think about Xavier Johnson last year, Smith the Jigba went down and here's Xavier Johnson came out of nowhere essentially. His name hadn't even really been brought up a whole lot, but he really stepped forward when they needed him the most. He was there. So that could be kind of the Ballard role where, he has a big day here and then kind of a couple weeks where he's just kind of in the shadows, and then he has another big game. And, he's got big playability. There's no doubt he could take the top off if given that chance. It's just how many of those opportunities is he going to get, because Brian Hartline is not going to want to take Harrison or Igbukah off the field. I can tell you that.
Yeah, right. Hartline's clear. He's like, I say this all the time on the show, but it bears repeating. I like this mantra. Hartline's mantra is like, unless they're gassed, if I'm taking Marvin Harrison Jr. off the field, why am I taking him off the field if you're not as good as him? Like, why am I putting you out there if you can't match what he does? So, I like that mantra. All right, Levi Smith asked this on Twitter and now is asked on YouTube. I appreciate this question. I think it's a good one. He wants to know basically, will Brian Hartline call a more physical game given the fact that he played for Jim Tressel? Get into that, and also get into, do you actually believe that Brian Hartline is going to be the play caller this fall, or do you think Ryan Day is going to have a really tough time actually giving that up when the actual games start?
This is what I think. I think that they are going to sit in that conference room all week, and they're going to come up with down and distance, a list of X plays, 10, 15 plays for every down and distance situation, like they always do every week. Say, this will work. Their defense will not allow us to do this, and come up with what they think are the best plays for each week as a group. And then when they get into the game, I think to start the season, it'll be Hartline. I just think that I don't want to say Day has divorced himself from that, but I think Day has realized that there is so much going on with you want to win the national championship, you have actually got to recruit 365 days out of the year, and you got to help supervise the defense 365 days out of the year and help supervise the offense and special teams 365 days a year. You just can't specialize. I think he's tried it his way, and they've come up short 3 times. I mean,
and NIL and the portal and all this other
nonsense. The NIL and the portal.
All the stuff he has to deal with. I mean, it's crazy. Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
You make perfect point that there's so much on his plate that just to pigeonhole himself as the play caller of the offense takes him away from managing the program. They tried it his way. He's tried it his way. I think this is him coming to the realization that, first of all, he knew he was losing Wilson, and Wilson would have been the guy to turn it over to. And he said that before they ever elevated Brian Hartline to be the offensive coordinator. So he must believe in Brian Hartline because he knew he was losing Wilson. And he said, I'm giving this up to Kirk Herbstreit, and back before the Peach Bowl. And that means he knew he was giving it to Brian Hartline at that point. And it just took a few weeks for it to come together. But he has faith in Brian Hartline is what that tells me. That whole chronology tells me he knew it was going to be Brian Hartline, and he has faith in what Brian Hartline could do. It sounds to me like on those headsets, Brian Hartline for the last 2 or 3 years has been very vocal about, as they're getting ready to run the play, coach is like, what are we thinking next? And Hartline's apparently had some pretty good suggestions because, and maybe they've taken advantage of them because, I can't imagine he'd get this shot just sight unseen. So I think you got to let it work and play out. If they get 5 games into this and it's not working, you can always change it. You can always go back. But to me, what I've seen so far, Day's divorced from it. It's Hartline and Fry are the 2 primary guys on the headphones with, the GAs and the backup quarterbacks doing the signaling and everything. And that's the brain trust right now. I'm sure they all sat in that conference room and said, on Saturday when we do this scrimmage, Coach Day probably said, I want to see this, 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 and this. Mm-hmm. And then they sat down with that blueprint and they said, well, we're going to do this and this and this. And most of it was scripted, but then they do what they call move it, which you can't script that because you don't know if you're going to get 9 yards or 20 yards or a sack. And you got to call those plays in succession. It's not just every down is third down. So if people could go and see what I'm talking about, they'd understand what I'm talking about. When you get to what they call move it, you've got to call every play as it happens. So to me, I think Hartline's going to be fine in that role.
And if his last game was that Georgia game, boy, he called a hell of a game. He coached his ass off, I guess, until the final 3 plays where they didn't get close enough for the field goal. But overall, they took an amazing Georgia defense to school for most of that game.
I would go back. The play that was killing Georgia all day was Igbuka on the drag route coming from left to right. And I would have rolled Stroud out and have him hit Igbuka on that. And they would have picked up 8 yards like that.
A little play action on it too. Maybe mix in a little play action.
They burned them all day on that play.
Right.
Yeah, fake the run. And
then Stroud could have ran if somebody was on Igbuka. That's a great call. And then if somebody is on Igbuka, then Stroud.
Yeah, he's got the run pass option. Yeah.
Yes. And until the Georgia game, we never would have said that Stroud would run. But then he ran. He did something called run the football.
They were this close to winning the national championship. This close.
That close. All right. Great stuff out of Steve Helwagen. Thank you very much. Thanks to all the listeners out there. Seems like we had a pretty big audience today. I appreciate you guys very much.
2 plugs.
Part of your morning. Yeah, go ahead.
Doing a chat tonight on the front row. So if you got more questions, post them on the front row message board. And after 8:30, I'll be in during the national championship game, which is tonight. Dave, who you got? San Diego State.
I got a little bit of the coin on UConn, so I got them.
They've run a rampage through this tournament. Like they're the story of this tournament right now. That and San Diego State's defense are the 2 stories, I think. And I would say UConn, I guess. I don't know what the line is. Is it 4 or 5?
Like 8. It might be down to 7.5. I've seen it opened at 6, went to 8. It might be 7.5 now. I'm going to stay away from that. I think UConn's going to win. I already have my bet in. My bet was made before the Final Four. I got a futures bet on UConn to win. So it wasn't like I did it before the tournament. That would have been nice. But I still got pretty good odds going into the Final Four. So I might stay away from the point spread. That's a little high, especially for a team that likes to muck up the game like San Diego State. I could see San Diego State covering, but UConn winning, and I could see UConn blowing them out. I really can't. I mean, anything could happen. I could obviously foresee San Diego State winning. There's like a 10%, 15% chance, but I'm pretty sure UConn's going to win this game. But I'm not going to lay 7.5 or 8 points. No way. Not against a defensive team. No.
Yeah. So the chat is tonight, 8:30. Post any questions on Ohio State and Big Ten football, basketball, and recruiting. And then tomorrow at 11 a.m., we do our live weekly webcast, Ohio State Buckeyes Live, with Mark Rogers TV. And we'll be breaking down the scrimmage for a full hour tomorrow on that show. So tune in for that.
Yeah, you guys do a great job on there. I always enjoy watching you guys on the Mark Rogers channel. He does a great job, the Voice of College Football channel. So I always see my friends on there. I'll be on YouTube. maybe checking out some stuff on YouTube, and I'll just see that'll pop up, and sometimes I'll jump in there and listen to you guys a little bit. All right. Appreciate you guys rolling with us. I'm Dave Biddle. He's Steve Helwagen. Thanks again to all of you. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.